BMW M5 tier list. Today we are going to rank every generation of the BMW M5s from the very first that was released in 1985 to the very newest that was released just earlier this year. Why should you trust my ranking? Well, I happen to own one of the most controversial BMW M5s ever made. With that being said, let's jump right into it. Okay, so up first we have the BMW M5 E28, first M5, released in 1985. Gonna be honest, I don't know a ton about this car. I was doing some research on it beforehand. Turns out this car had the same engine as the BMW 1M, which is very cool because the 1M is a super unique car. Inline 6, 286 horsepower. This car tried to really define that sports sedan with elegant style back in the day. I think it did a pretty good job. To me, there's nothing crazy about this car. It is the first M5, so it does deserve some respect. That being said, I'm gonna kind of stick this right in the middle. This kind of sets the tone for the rest of the list because ultimately everything else is going to revolve around this M5, the one that started it all. All the M5s are good. M5s and BMW are an amazing brand. That being said, something has to go into C and D, and we are going to get there. But up next, we have the BMW E34, second in line. Gonna be honest again, not a ton I know about this M5 either. This was basically a facelifted and upgraded and more powerful version of that E28. 340 horsepower, 0 to 100 in 5.9 seconds. This car was released in 1988, and for 1988 standards, that is an incredible feat. This is also the first one they made a touring model of, which means it had basically the hatchback version. Only 1,000 were produced, which is very cool. I don't know about you guys, but I am a huge fan of the touring models, especially of some of the newer M cars. Maybe we'll get them here in North America at some point. Until then, we're gonna be looking at Germany to enjoy those tourings. Overall solid car, pretty much just an upgrade of our first generation over here. So I'm honestly gonna just stick that right next to our boy up there, maybe even put him a little bit above because it's just an upgraded version of the first M5. So we're starting off right middle down the road, both the first two M5 generations, E28, E34, going into slot B. Now, between generations, I think this is where BMW and M5s have the biggest upgrade from one generation to the next. And that is, of course, with the BMW M5 E39. Touted as being the most legendary M5 likely of all the generations, at least that seems to be the common consensus. This thing had the biggest difference compared to its previous generation. Biggest changes in terms of performance and power, as well as looks and aesthetics. It's got a V8, 0 to 100 in 5.3 seconds, 400 horsepower, and all of that in 1998. The biggest thing about this car that I think sets it apart from the rest of the M5s is that it's super reliable and actually good to work on and will last you forever. This seems to be the most sought after model of all the M5s today. It's also getting really hard to find, but that being said, I really can't argue with that. The color options, the specs, the power, just the legendary status that this M5 has, and the huge upgrade and leap it took from its previous model. I think this one has to go into S tier. This is ultimately one of the best M's ever made, and of our M5s, it's going in the S tier. You knew it was coming, right? The M5 E60. Probably the most controversial car on this list. Like I said, I know I've owned one for 8 years now at this point. It seems like it's been forever. It's got a special place in my heart, but I can't deny the reputation that this car's gotten. First of all, when this car was released, Top Gear called this the ugly M5, touting that from its previous model, the E39, the E60 took a huge downgrade in looks and aesthetics wise for the time. Again, we're talking mid 2000s here. This thing was designed in 2005, came out in 2006. With time, I think the body lines and the shape of the car have really stood that test of time and aged like fine wine. I really enjoy my M5, especially with the modifications done. But for sure, back in the day, the E60, as well as that 7 Series from the same generation that have those big butts, ultimately called the Bangle butts because they were designed by Chris Bangle. Super controversial at the time, didn't work with kind of what the car people wanted. That being said, undeniable, this thing has a Formula One inspired V10 engine, the S85 5-liter, 507 horsepower. This is absolutely my favorite part of the car. That V10 scream never gets old when it works. Again, this M5 is known for breaking down, not being super reliable. For me personally, the SMG transmission has gone twice. Both cost me over $2,000 to fix, as well as the rod bearings in the engine, which you have to get done every, I think it's 80,000 or 60,000 kilometers. I've had to get them too. Again, that's over $4,000 just for the parts and the install. But all that being said, there is no other M5, I would say, that drives like the E60. The sound, the raw driving power, and the feel you get, I think this is the absolute peak of sports sedan mixed with elegance when it comes to any of the M models. So for me personally, I would put this as well in the S tier, but I cannot deny the E39's legendary status, so I am going to put it right behind the E39 within that S tier. Moving on, we got the F10 BMW M5. For me, this is when BMW started to take a step in kind of the future of what their designs would look like. This kind of set the precedent of the longer bodies, the boxier, long saloon kind of look that the newer M5s have, where the older ones I found from the E60 and back were still smaller kind of sports sedans. Everything from the F10 up these days is kind of that long super saloon, crazy powerful, but drives kind of like a ship style, which is why these cars get called boats all the time and they have that nickname. Undeniable though, 560 horsepower, turbocharged V8. This car was really cool. To me, it looks a little too stock for my liking. I'm not a huge fan of this. And this is my big problem with the newer M5s. Basically everything after the E60 is they look very businessy, regardless of how powerful they are. Ultimately, I think they moved away from that sports business sedan perfect mix, more towards a business focus and leaning away from that sports kind of history that they had, which we still see in the M3s, the M4s, and of course the M2. I think M5s have kind of lost that edge a little bit. And this started to happen with the F10 for me, for sure. And in that case, it's going to go in the C tier for me. Moving on and almost coming to the end of our list, we do have the M5 F90 at this point. And to me, this is when M5s took the full turn, going full business class, we'll call it, when it comes to their cars. Although this thing is an absolute track beast. 625 horsepower, 0 to 100 in 3.3 seconds. This M5 was beating two-door coupes from its competitors like it was nothing. However, none of that matters at the end of the day, at least to me, if we lose the spirit of what an M5 is supposed to be. Like I said, that's that mix of sports sedan and business class elegance. And although the performance is there, this thing is just a bit too boxy for me, drives too much like a boat. And I worked at BMW during the time of this release, and I remember driving it a few times, and it is a beast, but it doesn't feel like you're in a small, compact sports sedan. You are, like you said, in one of these huge ships. And I just can't get behind it. And so I gotta put something here in the D tier, but it's not gonna be this one. This is going in C tier, right next to our F10 up there. And you know what? I don't wanna do this, but I do feel like I have to. I don't think it's fair to have nothing in the A tier. And now when I do look at this F10 a bit more, although we still see that shift into that business classy style, I do think it does a great job of being what it's supposed to be, which is that shift to more futuristic BMW class while still maintaining some of that raw street power of the sports coupes of its other generations or models like the M3 and the M4. So I'm actually going to proactively here move, or is it post-actively because it's after I ranked it? Anyway, I'm gonna move this up to the A tier. Because I'm trying to think in my head if I had to own these, in what order would they be, and for sure it'd be the E39 and the E60, and then if I had to pick another one, it would probably be the F10. So it deserves a spot up in the A tier. Last but not least, we have the longest, heaviest, clunkiest, and most powerful M5 ever built. The M5 G90. Twin turbo V8 with 717 horsepower, which it needs if it's going to be able to push all gazillion pounds or whatever it weighs down the road. This thing is undeniably a fast sports sedan. That being said, I don't like it. I haven't seen it in person, but reading about the weight, looking at the pictures online, watching some reviews, I just can't get behind this. And I'm somebody who actually likes the rest of the G series, even with the vertical grills. The M2s, the M3, the new M4s, they've grown on me. I'm actually a big fan of those. But the M5 has really disappointed me this time around, and it's actually disappointed me more and more every year since the E60. I think we upgraded from the first generation all the way up to the E39, then the E60. Then we took a bit of a step back with the F10. We took even more of a step back with the F90. All of this poor design is accumulated into the G90 at the end of the day. I can't get behind it. Not a fan for me. If you like it, I'm sorry, but for me, it is going in the D tier. We had to do it. Somebody had to be last place, and it's gonna be the G90. And that is gonna wrap up our list. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Please let me know in the comments. Clearly I'm an E60 fanboy, so that's got a special place in my heart. Am I insane for owning that car? If so, let me know. If you wanna see more tier lists like this, make sure you sub and also comment what M models or what cars you want me to rank next, as well as if you want to catch some E60 content, that's always coming to the channel soon too. Appreciate you guys. My name's Chris. See you in the next video. Love ya. Bye.